Welcome back to the final week of the series we've called Pioneers. We've talked about Moses, we've talked about David, we've talked about Deborah, and today we're going to finish our series. We're going to be talking about another character, about a man that I believe relates to all of us. It's about a beautiful story of redemption and of God's mighty hand, but it doesn't go the way we think it should. See, just like your life, there are twists and turns, and they don't make any sense. The kinds of twists and turns that make you question God's plans, His presence even, His provision in your life. See, this man faces the most drastic turns of devastation, and somehow, in some way, he sees God's plans come to pass. I mean, it's seriously a miracle. And the person that we're going to conclude this series talking about today is Joseph. Okay? See, Joseph was one of the youngest sons of Jacob. The man we are dealing with is the great-grandson of the father of our faith, known as Abraham. Okay? Abraham is the one through him all the nations would be blessed. Big deal. So you see Abraham, and then 4 generations later, we meet Joseph. And we learn that there are plans of God in Joseph's life and in that lineage that are under severe attack. Okay? God knew that there would be a great famine in the land that would try to wipe out his people. And so what did he do? He raised up a leader. But Joseph's rise to leadership is one filled with seemingly tragic turns, as I mentioned earlier. See, when Joseph was a boy, God gave him a dream. 2 separate dreams, and they resembled the fact that one day he would be in charge. One day he would be in a place of power, of prominence. He would be in a high position. And one day his brothers and his family would bow at his feet. Pretty big dream, right? I'm here to tell you that whenever you have dreams, big God-sized dreams, you need to be very careful with who you share those with. Because what we do is we see Joseph sharing this dream with his brothers and with his family. And they despised him for it. They're like, no way am I ever going to worship. No way am I ever going to bow at your feet. You will never be in charge of me. Be careful who you share your dreams with. Listen, big dreams are inspiring, but for a lot of people, they can drum up one of the most destructive urges we can have, and that's jealousy. Some of you are the jealous type. So you got to be careful with who you share your big God-sized dreams with, because people get jealous. Okay? Jealousy will motivate people to sabotage your dream. We see it in the story. The brothers of Joseph tried to sabotage his dream. They became so jealous that they conspired to kill Joseph. Okay? The brothers talked together and they reasoned that instead of killing him, which, you know, is kind of a big deal, they would just throw him in a pit and leave him there. But that wasn't enough. We see a traveling band of merchants who are the Ishmaelites. They're come along and their brothers decide to sell him to them as a slave. So I don't want to throw him in a pit. That's, you know, let's just sell him into the slave trade. Let's sell him to these Ishmaelites. Okay? And from there, they take them to Egypt and they sell them in the Egyptian slave market. So now, so far, this story's pretty tragic. I mean, this man, Joseph, had a dream that he was going to someday be in charge. And now we see him plotted against, thrown in a pit, then sold into slavery from 2 different times. And now we see him in Egypt working for a pretty prominent person, Potiphar, who's actually the king of Egypt. I wonder what Joseph's thinking. When is it my turn? When is my time of power and prominence? When is that going to happen for me? Let's pick up in Genesis 39, verses 1 and 2. Now Joseph had been brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, who's the king of Egypt, the captain of the guard, and Egyptian, had bought him from the Ishmaelites who brought him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man, and he was in the house of his Egyptian master. See, Joseph's success was not rooted in where he was, but who he was with. Let me say that again. Joseph's success was not rooted in where he was. It was who he was with. His success didn't matter if he was in the pit. It didn't matter if he was in the palace. We see that the Lord was with Joseph. And because he was with Joseph, he was successful. Understand, people can be successful without the Lord. But when they are, it's up to them to maintain or sustain their success. When you are successful because the Lord is with you, He will sustain your success. Circumstances may change around you, but as long as the Lord is with you, you will be successful. It doesn't matter where you are. You will be successful as long as the Lord is with you. Let's go to verse 3 here. His master saw the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to succeed in his hands. So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him, and he made him overseer of his house and put him in charge of all that he had. From the time that he made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian house for Joseph's sake. The blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in house and field, so he left all that he had in Joseph's charge. And because of him, he had no concern about anything but the food he ate. See, the master could tell that the Lord was with him. It was obvious because everything that he touched and everything that he did was blessed. It prospered, okay? So if the master could tell the Lord was on him, at your school, on your team, in your home, can they tell the Lord is with you? If so, how? What about the things you do and say determine if people can see that God is really with you? And I don't mean that you stop and you pray all the time. That's not what I'm talking about. Does the work you do, the words you say, the actions that you display reflect the nature of God? If so, it looks like you're living out truth and love and kindness and gentleness, and you're walking in the fruits of the Spirit. People will take notice, and they'll see that something is different in you. They may not know what it is, but they're going to notice that something is different in you. We need to understand that God has an agenda, and his agenda is this. He wants to make himself known to all the earth, okay? Let's move to verse 6 in the text. Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance. I mean, look at me. I mean, I'm a lot like him. I relate to him. That's me. That's why I love this story. It's like, that's me. I'm handsome in form and appearance. Verse 7, and after a time his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph and said, lie with me. Let's translate that text to today. She's like, you and me, baby, let's go. Let's do it together. Do it meaning sex. She's like, hey, let's have sex. I want to have sex with you. Pause, guys. Imagine if a girl did that. Let's be real, man. That's some serious, serious temptation. Serious temptation. See, in this story, I mean, obviously, this is about a woman seducing Joseph, but in your life, in your school, on your team, this could be any kind of sin trying to seduce you or tempt you, to get you to give up God's ways and take the ways of the world. It's true. This is where it gets complicated. This is where you really find out if it's the Lord who you rely on for success or the world. This is a true kind of place to see where you fall. Okay? The terrible thing is that this is just the enemy trying to lock you into a prison of misery. So you take the bait, then you begin to lie and steal and cheat, and you're going to hate yourself for it. You're going to constantly find yourself wondering when it's all going to come crashing down. And I'm here to tell you, it will soon enough. It will soon enough. Let's pick back in verse 8. But he refused. I love his response. He refused, and he said to his master's wife, behold, because of me, and my master has no concern about anything in the house. He's put everything that he has in my charge. He is not greater in this house than I am, nor has he kept back anything from me except you, because you are his wife. How then can I do great wickedness and sin against God? He kept his integrity. He kept his character. He held tightly to his relationship with God and the promise of God. And he says, no. See, Joseph is not just looking at this with what's best choice for survival. He's not just trying to survive here. See, many of us get into survival mode. Our lives become quickly about me, about what I can do now, what I can get away with now, where I can fall short, where I can find compromise. It's about me and my needs. I deserve it. I mean, I'm taking care of the king. I'm dialing everything in the house. Everything I'm touching is prospering. When am I going to get mine? He totally could have got his, but he wasn't. It wasn't about him. He says it's not even that if I do this, my master might kill me. He brings his morals into the decision. It's his commitment to God that makes the decision for him, which is heck no. So here's my question. When you leave for school, when you go to work, when you go to the sports field, when you go to a friend's, do your morals go with you? Or do you leave them at home? See, wherever Joseph went, also went his morals. See, it's tough to keep your backbone in the world making decisions based on your belief. It's so easy to go with the flow. Joseph said, I can't do this, not because it's a sin against his master, because it's a sin against his God. He said, forget my master. It's God that I'd be letting down, and I'm not going to do it. Do I speak up? Do I let it fly? Do I participate? Do I step away? Those are the questions that we find ourselves in these tempting times. Let's pick up in verse 10. And as she spoke to Joseph day after day, she was trying to get her. She was trying to lay with him. She was trying to have sex with him. He wouldn't listen to her, to lie beside her, be with her. But one day when he went into the house to do his work, and none of the men in the house was there, she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. She's like throwing herself on him. But he left his garment in her hand and fled. He got out of the house. Boys, girls, when you're in this kind of temptation, run. The Bible says in 2 Timothy, flee the evil desires of youth. Pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart. You don't walk away. You don't turn your head. You run. You flee. You get yourself out of that situation quickly before your mind can rationalize that moment. Okay? Verse 13. And as soon as she saw that he left his garment in her hand, she had fled out of the house. She called to the men of her household and said to them, see, he has brought among us a Hebrew to laugh at us. He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice. And as soon as he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried out, he left his garment beside me and fled and got out of the house. Then she laid up his garment by her until his master came home. Verse 17, and she told him the same story, saying, the Hebrew servant whom you have brought among us came in to me to laugh at me. But as soon as I lifted up my voice and cried, he left his garment beside me and fled out of the house. As soon as his master heard the words that his wife spoke to him, this is the way your servant treated me, his anger was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. And he was there in prison. This woman claimed that Joseph essentially raped her, that he came onto her. It was the other way around. She was trying to do it to him. Joseph didn't do anything wrong, and yet he faced consequences. Guys, again, Joseph had a dream. God said he was going to be in a place of power and place of prominence. And yeah, we saw him in the pit. We seen him in the palace. And now we see him in the prison. Will he continue to be faithful? Will he continue to be obedient? Let's keep talking about it, okay? We see there that he faced the consequences, then God still restored him. So that's not how it goes. It just seems so unfair. You've called me, God. Why am I going through all these tests? Has life ever felt unfair to you? I mean, honestly, we all can say it. Have you ever been in a place where you're doing everything you know to do? Trusting God, you're being faithful, you're in his will, but still bad things are still happening. Why do you do Let me say this. What you do at this moment will determine your destiny. What you do with the temptation, what you do in these tests from the pit to the palace to the prison, it will determine your destiny. It will determine your future. See, so many people blame God at this moment. Why, God, am I doing this? You said I was going to be here. You said I was going to do this. And they blame God for what they're facing. But let's not put the blame on the wrong person. See, it was the master's wife who lied, who conspired against him to take him down. See, so many people complain that life isn't fair. God, where are you? The problem with the idea that life should be fair is that the enemy doesn't play fair. He doesn't play fair. Why would he play fair? He's going to do everything he can to throw you off and to knock you out of the whole game. That's just what he does. So make sure you put the blame in the right place. Don't blame God. God is not the one to blame. Don't lose faith in him, because God is a God of justice. He'll make things right. He'll vindicate you. If you lose your faith in God, you lose the only hope for justice. Hold on. Verse 21, but the Lord, again, we see the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison put Joseph, what? In charge of all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. The keeper of the prison paid no attention to anything that was in Joseph's charge, because the Lord was with him. And whatever he did, the Lord made it succeed. See, Joseph was faithful in the pit. He passed the test there. He could have gotten mad. He was faithful in the palace, where he was accused, and his character and his integrity was put on display. And now he's faithful to God in the prison and is continuing to find favor. And everything he's touching is prospering. Everything he's doing is working. People are noticing the hand of God in his life. That's what's happening. He's passing the test. There's pain. God, why am I in prison? This wasn't part of the plan. I'm hurt. He's passing the test. He's still being faithful. He's still keeping the faith. If favor is earned, you lose it once you stop earning it. You can mess up and it's gone. Or someone can conspire against you, take you down, and it's gone. When favor is a person, it stays with you wherever you go. When favor is a covenant, it's never based on conditions. If favor is earned, if you have to earn it, you'll lose it and you'll stop earning it. That's just how it works. But if favor is a person named Jesus, it stays with you wherever you go. It's never based on the conditions. It's never based on where you are or who you're around. It's based on none of those conditions. See, the beautiful thing about the favor of the Lord is that his love is steadfast and he will never leave you. If you end up in prison, he will follow you there. And even there, in the place you least expect it, you'll find favor. Joseph did. So the story goes on and takes some interesting turns. He interprets dreams of the prisoners, and the king finds out that he can interpret dreams. Okay, the king calls him to interpret his own dream, and as a result, the king saw that the Lord made him successful. Gee, go figure. The king put Joseph in charge of all of Egypt, second in command. This guy was second in command. He was now in his place to preserve the people of God during the great famine. Remember, we talked about that great famine. They were in big trouble in the beginning. So have you ever watched an artist paint? That's the question. It can be so confusing to watch an artist paint. You say, wait a minute, that doesn't go there, or what's that? Or man, that looks terrible. What in the world is going on here? What is he making? So then all of a sudden you say, hold up, wait a minute. No, he did. Wow, I see it now. I finally understand what's going on. So that's a lot of what God's plan for your life looks. That's a lot what his plan for your life looks. That's just how it works. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. You're not seeing the picture. You're seeing splots and color and splatter and everything. But eventually, it becomes a picture, becomes a canvas. See, Joseph was sent to prison. It was the prison that was going to provide him an audience with the king. Joseph stuck with God, and God stuck with Joseph in the prison. So since God stuck with Joseph, he stuck with Joseph in the front of the king. So when you live your life with God in the most critical moments, you don't have to sweat them anymore. You know, God was with you in the desert. He was with you in the house. He was with you in the prison. And he'll be with you in front of the king. It's easy to deliver under pressure when God is the one delivering for you. When you're under pressure, it's easy to deliver when God is living for you. This is the promise of God for your life. Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That's what David is saying in the Psalms 23. That's God's promise for you. So hopefully you were encouraged in this series. Hopefully you can learn like Joseph to pass the test. He was faithful in the pit, in the desert. He was faithful in the palace, place of prominence. He was faithful in the prison where there was pain and there was despair and there was lots of questions and confusion. And then he was faithful back when he made himself back into the king's palace. Good stuff. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Love you guys. See you next week. Peace.